नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्. Om. Dear friends, welcome to the study of the Mahabharata. We were seeing the very interesting story of Yayati. There are certain supernatural things like exchange of youth, etc. A man suddenly becoming old. So these things let us not question. Let us see what is the ethical issue, or what is the point of ethics which the writer is going to say. So yesterday, if you just recall that story, we know that there are two girls called Sharmishta and Devayani. Sharmishta is the daughter of the king and Devayani is the daughter of Shukracharya. So the king initially married the Devayani, the daughter of Shukracharya, and later very secretly married the other lady called Sharmishta, who is the daughter of that king, the king of demons. And through that lady, through that second wife, he got 3 sons. Through the first wife, he got 2 sons. And the first wife, that is Devayani, who is the very fond daughter of, who is the very darling daughter, let us say, darling daughter of that Shukracharya, she went and complained to her father, "Oh, this man has cheated on me. You specifically said, no, don't invite her onto bed, but this man, he invited onto his bed, and he has got 3 children through her." Then that Shukracharya, very instantly he curses him. Very instantly, you are going to become old. So that young man became very old and with a wrinkled face and wrinkles all over the body. Then again, unable to move. So then that he said, "No, I still want to, your daughter is my wife, and you will be actually indirectly cursing your wife, your daughter." Then the Shukracharya, he modifies the curse, because the curse once given, it cannot be totally taken back. He modifies it. Okay, if somebody takes your old age and exchanges his youth for that, you will again become young. So then at that time he said, "Okay, if somebody exchanges my youth, I will give him my kingdom. You agree for that?" Then Shukracharya also said, "Okay, fine, let it be so." Then this king went and then he asked all the 5 sons. The first 4 sons, they said, "No, we cannot take your kingdom." They in fact ridiculed him. "How can we take your old age?" Then he asked the last son. His name was Puru, P-U-R-U. And then that Puru said, "Okay, I will accept your old age." So then he exchanged his young youth with the father's old age. The Puru son became very old, and then the father became young, and then the father, for a long time again, he ruled. He continued to be the ruler, and he was a very, very wise ruler. Yayati, there is no doubt about his wisdom in the matters of ruling. So regarding this administration, not only that, following dharma very meticulously. He followed dharma. He enjoyed what all pleasures he enjoyed according to dharma only. So here also the writer is very particular. Vyasa is very particular to point out, "Yatha kamam, yathotshaham, yatha kalam, yatha sukham." So according to whatever desire he wanted, and whatever enthusiasm, utsaham he wanted, and whatever time he wanted, and dharma viruddham rajendra yatharhati sayevahi. Dharma aviruddham, that is not contradicting the dharma, not violating the dharma. Whatever pleasures he enjoyed, he did not violate dharma in any manner. Then he again says, the same poet, "Avirodhena dharmasya chachara sukhamuttamam." Avirodhena dharmasya means without violating dharma, he enjoyed all the pleasures. Then after some time, then Yayati also, because as we here, of course, he is not growing old, he is only young. And long time, that youth, it is something like a youth which is made still in time. Time has not made him old. So in that stage, after enjoying the pleasures for some time, he got wise, and then he called his son Puru and then said, "Oh, my dear son, these desires," this shloka is very, very often quoted. Desires are like whatever sticks you put into the fire. Suppose there is a burning fire, and into that fire you put some dry sticks and dry twigs, and it will further grow. And the quenching of desires is like putting some more dry twigs into that fire. The more twigs you put, the more it, by putting more twigs and more of what we call faggots, something, the fire is not going to be put out. It is not going to be quenched. So like thirst cannot be quenched. So like that, there again, the fire is not going to be put out by putting more sticks there, more firewood. You add more firewood, the bigger the flame is. So that is what he says. The desire is like that. Najatu kamah kamanam upabhogena shamyati. By enjoying these pleasures, that kama, the satiation, that will never get satiated. And havisha krishnavartmeva. By putting more havis, the fire is further glowing. So it is like that. So this kama or desire is compared to a fire. And again, there is again one more famous line. Yatha pruthivyam vrihiyavam hiranyam pashavasriyah ekasyapi na paryaptam. I am reading a sloka from chapter number 85. If somebody is having the text, you can see the text 85 and the verse number 13, 85, verse number 13. So, ekasyapi na paryaptam tasmat trushnam parityajet. So, all the things which are there in the world, if a man is greedy, what all is in the world is not enough to satisfy the greed of a person. This is a very famous statement, or rather this is a statement made famous by Gandhi. We know that our Gandhi ji or Gandhi Mahatma, this Gandhi Mahatma said, in the world has got everything for the need of everyone. The world has got enough for the need of everyone, but not for the greed of one. So this statement of Mahabharata was made famous by Gandhi. So he says, here the poet says, ekasyapi na paryaptam tasmat trushnam parityajet. Whatever is there in the universe, it is not enough to satisfy the greed of one particular person. Then again he teaches the son, he tells the son some good manners, and again the king is almost, he feels satiated with what all pleasures he had, and then he sees the futility of all those things, and then he has become wise, and then he says, now okay, I am exchanging my youth, and then I will take back my old age. So again that Puru exchanges, and then that Puru becomes young, and Yayati, again this old man again, he wants to coronate, he wants to give the kingdom to that boy. Then at that time what happens? No, we know that there is what is called the law of primogeniture. That is, the first boy, the firstborn has to be crowned as a king. So according to that Devayani's son had to become the king. So the people, they come and say all this, like when you are choosing some chief minister. So somebody again, all the people say, no, we have to elect that man. There is a procedure for that. And according to tradition, according to all precedents, this is what has to be done. So all the people, they come and say the first boy has to be made the king. Then the king again explains, no, I have already taken the permission from Shukracharya. Whoever accepts my word, whoever obeys my word, he has to be the heir for me. So in fact, that is what is the permission I have taken from Shukracharya. And when all the people, they hear the name of Shukracharya, they also keep quiet. Okay. Because all other people, they did not listen. When the sons did not listen to the father, then why should the father give his property or the kingdom to them? So again, you see here, the point is the sons have to obey the father. That is a small point which we see all through our literature. So here, Mama Jyeshtena Yaduna Niyogo Nanupalitaha, that king is explaining everything, that I asked all these four sons, they refused, and only this boy he accepted. And so that is how I tested all my sons in serial order, and I have also taken the permission of Shukracharya. So when the people hear about Shukracharya, they just keep quiet, they also agree for that. And now, you see that Yayati, he now, having given the kingdom to that son, what does he do? He goes to what is called Vanaprastham. Vanaprastha is, in olden days, this is again very, very important point which we have to see. The kings, they did not hanker for kingdom, they did not say they didn't want to stick on to the kingdom till their death. As long as they were physically fit, as long as they were able to govern and all that, they remained as kings. And thereafter, they transferred the kingdom to the Yuvaraja, whoever was that prince, and they just retreated into the forest. They just retreated to jungles in order to do tapas. It is not as though they were enjoying, they were just retiring and then in some farmhouse fishing and doing something like that. They survived on what is called Phalamulashana, we are going to see here. Then here in this passage only, the poet is also saying that the sons of these four boys, the older boys who did not listen to the father's word, the sons or children of those four boys, they migrated to different areas. Yadostu Yadava Jataha, Turvasur Yavanas Smrutaha. The Turvasu's sons were called Yavanas, and Druhya's sons they became somebody else. Anu's sons they became Lechas. Lechas again could be people who were staying in the areas of say Afghanistan, etc. So that means the people migrated. Some people migrated from here to other areas. So that is what this says. So in fact, these are certain shlokas which point out that many people might have migrated from India to other places. India, when I say India, not the present day India. At that time, in those days, Bharata Khanda, there was nothing called India. It was called Bharata Khanda. In that Bharata Khanda, right up to Afghanistan was Bharata Khanda. So anyway, now that king goes to forest. So that is called Vanaprastha. Vanam means forest. Prastha means travel. Prastha is travel. Vanaprastha means going to a forest. Going to a forest means what is the point in going to a forest? Not for hunting or anything. That is just basically retreating from what we call the humdrum of the city life, and then retreating to a small cottage, staying in some small cottage, live in a very meager, in a very frugal manner. So that is Vanaprastha, and also contemplate on the nature of that reality. We'll just take a break and come back. Let us come back. So this Vanaprastha, what is the nature of Vanaprastha? Chapter number 86, the poet is describing. He says, Ushitvacha vane vasam brahmanais samshitavrataha. So the king was samshitavrataha. That means a person whose vratam was so sharpened by discipline, spiritual discipline. So that is very highly sharpened spiritual discipline, that is samshitavrataha. So his conduct was so perfect, and he was living with the Brahmanas who were there in the forest. In fact, in those days, many Brahmanas were also staying in the forest. So he lived along with them, and he stayed along with them, and then eating some phalamulashano dantaha. Phalamulashana. Phalam is fruit, moolam is some roots, whatever roots and the tubers which are available in the jungle. They used to take out, and then they used to cook those roots, and then they used to eat. And then dantaha. Danta means totally, absolutely self-control, in the sense, not that he has become old and he is controlling. Even if you become old, anger and all those things will be there. A person's, the sexual desires and those things may come down, but then anger, hatred, all these things will be there. So that also has to be controlled. Danta means that is controlling all the realities. All his speech he has to control. He should not be harsh to anybody. And then his anger, all these things have to be controlled. So that is what is called Dantaha, Phalamulashano Dantaha, Tata Swargamito Gataha. And some more, Samsitatma Jitakrodha. Jitakrodha, particularly the poet is mentioning Jitakrodha. Krodha is anger. So by controlling his anger totally, completely controlling his anger, and then being neutral to everybody, that is Nirdvandvaha. Nirdvandva means we have got various dualities, like love, hate, etc. So a person who is rising above, going beyond those dualities. Agninsya vidhivat juhvan, but at the same time he was also offering all those, doing all those Agni Karyam, etc. Because a Kshatriya was not expected to take up sannyasa. And this sannyasa, that is becoming a beggar, living by bhikshatanam, was permitted only for a Brahmana. When a person took up sannyasa, he had to do bhikshatanam. So that bhikshatanam was permitted only for a Brahmana. It was not permitted for a Kshatriya. So this man also, Agninsya vidhivat juhvan, all this etiquette of those times, it is very clearly pointed out by the poet. Vidhivat Juhvan, that is, he was also doing all this yajna, yaga, etc. Yajna was not in a very elaborate manner, but in a very, by realizing the philosophy or the meaning behind it. Then Shiloncha Vritti Masthaya. There is one more point here, Shiloncha Vritti. Shiloncha Vritti means that is just picking up corn which is left out in the fields. So that is again Uncha Vritti. Uncha Vritti is picking up some left out corn, say after harvesting the crop. The farmers in those days, they used to leave out something in the field, so that poor people, they will go and then pick up. So that picking up that thing and making a living by that, it was also done by Brahmanas in old days. That is Uncha Vritti it was called. So here this king also, he did that Uncha Vritti, and he was doing tapas. Vayubhakshyo abhut. Vayubhakshya means after some time he gave up even that, and then he was just surviving by pranayama. Vayubhaksha. Vayu means air. Bhakshanam means taking in, eating. You can't eat air. Vayubhaksha is only a idiom. Vayubhakshanam does not mean you are eating air. Vayubhakshanam is an idiomatic expression, which means that he was living only by pranayama. That's all. By just breathing, he was alive for some time. And he was doing tapas. Tapas actually is, the meaning of tapas is alochana. Tapa alochane. That is thinking, that is meditating, contemplating on the nature of what is that reality. So that is what is tapas. So he stayed like that, and then at the end, when he attained heaven. So that is what we say. Punyakirtis tata swarge jagama avrutya rodasi. So he attained heaven. So there are two words here, what is called heaven and what is called moksha. Moksha is realizing the nature of the self, that is a philosophical achievement, or rather philosophical attainment, or philosophical the state of enlightenment, where he realizes that his nature is the same as that supreme reality. So here the poet is saying, this man merely went to heaven. So heaven is something which is supposed to be rather inferior. So then he stayed in heaven. When he was staying in heaven, it so happened, we know that in heaven, the king of all the gods, heaven is a place. Here, of course, I have to tell something about what is called the difference between what we call heaven and what is called realization or liberation. So in Vedanta or in any book of philosophy, you find that when you go to a guru, when you go to a satsang, they talk about what is called a liberation or moksha. What is this moksha or liberation? Liberation means you will not go anywhere. Liberation is a state of realization while you are alive, while here and itself, while we are alive, there is a state of realization. Yes, all this thing. And then when you contemplate on the nature of what is this universe and what is the origin of this universe, and that origin of the universe which is of the nature of pure consciousness, and that consciousness which is appearing as the whole universe, and who am I? My real nature is that consciousness. And then you rise above all petty limitations. Oh, I belong to this caste, I belong to this region, I belong to this religion. So you go beyond religion, going beyond religion. That is what is Gita says, Nistraigunya bhava Arjuna, Traigunya Vishaya Vedaha. That is, you have to rise above all these limitations, because the society has given us a particular identity. I belong to this country, I belong to this religion, I belong to this, etc., etc. And some people fight for religion, and then very foolishly they try to impose their religion on others. So here he is a man who rises above that religion, who rises above all these limitations, and he is one with everybody. He loves everybody. There is a sort of unconditional love for all the beings. So he attains that stage. That is liberation. Whereas heaven is something which we talk about in the realm of religion. It is in the realm of religious belief. Moksha is something, it is not a religious belief. Moksha is a real state of enlightenment, where the man gets freed from various types of mental knots. Whereas Swarga is something, heaven is something which is part of a religious belief. That means a person who is in a Punya Loka called heaven, and then there is a person called Indra, I can't prove the existence of Indra. It is a question of belief. Whereas realization, you can realize it, you can really feel it, you can feel it, and there is no need for any, there is no need for further proof, you can feel it. Whereas this thing is something, it is a matter of belief, going to heaven. So this man goes to heaven, and there, why I am saying all this is, we should not question, okay, how can a man go to heaven, etc., etc. We have to see what is the lesson which the poet is trying to say. So there, Indra had a conversation with him. So what did you tell your son when you installed him in the kingdom? You might have given him, you are such a wise man, you might have given some instruction to him. What is the instruction you gave? So then he gives a long speech. This Yayati gave a long speech, and he could have been more humble while saying. But then when Indra asked him, what is the instruction you gave? He gave a long speech showing all his abilities of talking. Vidvattabhimanam. Vidvattabhimanam means, that is, oh, I am such a learned man. So he gave a long speech. So I told him, okay, you do like this, you be like this. So I told all that. Aruntudam parusham tikshnavacham. There again, there are certain passages, there are certain instructions relating to krodha. Krodha means anger. You have to avoid anger. So repeatedly Mahabharata talks about controlling anger, because all human problems arise out of anger, hate. So akrodhanaha krodhanebhyo visishtaha tatha titikshuhu atitikshor visishtaha. So he says akrodhanaha. Akrodhana means a person who has controlled his krodha, or who has negated, totally removed the krodha, is akrodhana. Then again says, again in the 9th sloka he says, aruntudam parusham tikshnavacham. So a person who does not use that stinging words. Aruntudam is stinging words. So a person should not use stinging words which go and hit a person like nails or thorns. So there are people who use words like thorns. They use certain words and they just hit us like thorns. So such words should not be used by a person. So all these things he tells. Then vaksayakaha vadanan nishpatanti. These are all various, what can we say, the subhashita. There is a particular term in Sanskrit called subhashita. Subhashita means a wise saying. Subhashitam. Bhashitam means saying. Subhashitam means means wise. Subhashitam is wise saying. So there are so many wise sayings here which have been translated into so many languages, and the same sentiment or the same idea you may see in other cultures also. So here he says, Vaksayakaha vadanan nishpatanti yairahatas shochiti ratriyahani. So if you hit a man with a weapon, you shoot an arrow and then you hit a man, that injury it will heal up in course of time. After some time it will heal up and you will not see the wound. Whereas a wound caused by your words, and then a wound which has hit the heart of a person, that will be there for a long time. So that is what he says. Parasyava marmasute patanti tan pandito navasruchet pareshu. So I am just reading out some slokas, basically to tell you that Mahabharata, the message of Mahabharata is in such lines only. The message of Mahabharata is not in the story like, okay, the king is exchanging his old age with his son's youth, or some other thing. He married 2 wives, he had 2 wives, and then he had 5 sons, etc. But what is the point which the poet is going to say? So everywhere in every episode, he is demonstrating one particular ethical issue. So then, after all this conversation, this Indra, now I am just touching this chapter number 88. This Indra asks him, oh, you are such a wise man and you have done such a great tapas. Do you think there is anybody equal to you in tapas? Can you identify somebody who is equal to you in the king? Indra also asks in a very intelligent way. Do you think that there is anybody who is equal to you in tapas and in your wisdom? Tatvam pruchhami nahushasya putra kenasi tulyas tapasa yayate kenasi tulyaha. Is there anybody who is comparable to you? Can you recall somebody? Suppose it's like going to, nowadays, particularly in the Western system, you are supposed to advertise yourself. If you are humble, you will not get a job also. You have to advertise yourself, you have to write some CV, a big CV, I am this, I am that, etc., etc. You have to boast about your abilities and whatnot. Only then the man is impressed. If you are honest, the man is not impressed. So here, this king, this certainly in a very subtle manner, this Indra is asking the question, and this person is said, okay, I have done this, I have done that, etc. Now when Indra is asking, Kenasi tulyas tapasayate, is there anybody who is comparable to you? Then this man falls into a trap, this Yayati falls into a trap, and he says, like our modern day young man who says, no, there is nobody equal to me, I am really the fittest, I am really the smartest. So this man also says, Naham deva manusheshu, gandharveshu maharshisu, atmanas tapasatulyam kanchit pashyami vasava. I don't find anybody who is equal to me in tapas and all that. Among gods or among humans, I don't find anybody who is equal to me. Then that is enough for Indra. Oh, you are showing your arrogance. That arrogance is something which is not to be, it is not a virtue. So he says, Yada vamanstha sadrusha shreyasascha. So the king has displayed arrogance. And that arrogance is something which makes a person, it causes the downfall of a person. So the king says, this Indra says, now you have shown your arrogance and you are actually negating all the great people in the world. There are so many people in the world. If somebody thinks that he is very, very great and whatnot, he has to remember that millions and millions of people have come before us. Millions and millions of people will come after us. But among those millions and millions of people who have come before us, there are again millions and millions who are brighter than us. It is not as though we are the brightest of all. So here he says, you are insulting everybody. Tasma alpiyasascha avidita prabhavaha. You are comparing, you are thinking yourself to be the great man. There have been very many great people, I mean the greater people than you. And now tasma lokas svantavantas taveme. Because of this sin, because of this arrogance, your punya is depleted. We know that there is a word called punyam. So your punyam is now depleted. You have to go back to earth. So now this man is caught in a trap and now he has to go back to earth, falling from heaven. Falling from heaven means it does not mean that he is just thrown down like a stone or anything like that. Falling down means from that higher state he has to come down to a lower state. So we will see what happens to this man tomorrow. Harihi Om Tat Sat.